now. We are just 4 minutes behind schedule. I think we can just start while others join us. And as usual, permit me to record this so that those that are joining us late will be able to benefit from it also. Thank you so much. Yes, Sam. Mr. Wells, I leave the floor for you now. Thank you.
Okay, now, greetings to everyone in today's section. My candid apologies. Yesterday was actually a flop simply because I was not home and I was very far from my base and all. So I had issues with network and all. And coming down to today, I don't understand 4 p.m. was actually the time, but in between the time also I had a delayed flight schedule and that also impounded into our time. My candid apologies to all of that. So, in getting started today, I think we had something so amazing. Like, we had topics that are actually a real true concern to everybody in the traveling space, to those who render services to clients, to those who are consultants, and to those also who actually want to explore for the get to see how where they can put to use some of the knowledge they're putting or getting or acquiring from those platforms. So once again now a big welcome to everyone who actually made it down to today's section, and my sincere apology for all of the postponements, the classes not hold, sections not holding, and all. I candidly, sincerely apologize. So without much ado now, we are going to delve into what we have today. And today we actually have so much to the topic, so much to the section to discuss. So I don't know if what you guys are having is the same thing I'm having here. The first priority on our list is study abroad programs, where we are going to place emphasis on how to go about them,
Mm,
as well as just delve leads on study abroad on loan. Now, after that, now we are
now
going
we
to look
have
at packaging tours
hello
because
Sam.
those actually, can you guys hear
Okay,
me?
yeah, because yes, sir, we can hear you. We had the IATA
Okay,
and
great
other
now.
aspect that we are supposed to start with. So I think we should start with the main thing. I know most of are going through the recorded videos of the past classes. So I think it's just going to be mostly the
Okay, that's
practicals. I just
absolutely
want to believe that everybody has gone through it.
okay. Okay, that's fine. Then, so in that case, now we'll be delving into something new. So first, we have the study abroad. We are going to look at that in more comprehensive view, and I'll see get place emphasis on study abroad on loan. Then after that, we'll look at tour package, how to go about them. Then maybe if time permits today, we'll look at conference visa. Then most likely tomorrow, we'll look at Schengen visa, visa on arrival countries for Nigerian passport holders, and how to go about second passport program. So these and all are actually what we'll be looking at today. So first now, let's talk about study abroad. Although the concept of study abroad cannot be fully discussed even in a week. The reason is because there are over 1,000 institutions across Europe. Same applies to the American continent for both North and South. And same actually applies for some part of Asia. But I think to actually get to give us a more comprehensive view so that we utilize or get to have in full all that we should actually gain in the course of this section, I think I'll just leave a kind of a quick vote or a quick one-way vote. What countries, maybe just 2 to 5 countries, we feel we should just enclose our study on so that we don't actually get to be so elaborate and discuss countries that might not be of such interest to us. So I don't know if maybe on the chat section we can just put in a few countries we feel are of topmost priority to just when it comes to getting a study permit for either ourselves or for clients, so that we actually get those areas fully discussed. Then I'll now shed more broad insight and light on how to go about them. Thank you. So you can just leave in the chat section a few countries you actually want us to discuss on the study abroad package so that we can actually get those countries fully discussed. So I'm going straight now to the chat section to actually get to look through some of the countries we are actually putting up for. Okay, I got someone said UK, that's awesome. Someone said Australia, That's a plus. Someone say Canada, Europe, and USA. Okay, that's so great. Canada, Australia, UK, and Luxembourg. That's okay. That's so perfect at the time. Okay, now so but let that is fully discussed. We now look at UK, we now look at Australia, then we now look at the United States of America. So I believe a bit to that now with cushion effect. Then I might just need there are more persons voting for Germany. So we might look at Germany instead of Luxembourg. So let's get started with Canada. So at first now, what we'll be looking at today is study abroad in Canada. Then we are still going to look at loan options, how you can actually explore loan options while trying to get students to come to Canada or while trying to get yourself to Canada. So we are going to be looking at all of that right away. So just like our manner is, there's going to be a giveaway. Let me get to say something. In the course of this section, when it comes to study abroad on loan, there's actually something that is very, very cogent, which is the ITIN, especially for those who are not in the United States, who don't actually have the United States green card, or who don't actually have the SSN. Now, there's something so important called the ITIN. For some of us, though, we just share a view. Some of us have heard about Empire Finance. Some of us have heard about Pro Finance in the past. Now, the disparity between these people and us, or you who is actually taking the class at the time now, is just ITIN, because you two can actually take partnership and run similar programs. So this is my own gentle giveaway. At the end of the section, we are going to give a free incorporation to one person in the United States of America. So if you are here and your business is not yet incorporated in the US and you don't have your business at the time now more established in the United States of America, at the end of today's section, we are going to be giving just one person our free United States of America incorporation, and that will be in the city of California. So, but how do you stand a chance to get all of these things? Is just simple two terms. Pay the best of attention. Take note when necessary. And when I get to pick people at random, luckily enough, if I get to pick you and you get my answers correctly, then you stand a chance to actually get a free incorporation in the United States. At the time now, to get your business incorporated in the United States, is the minimum you can get that for is 500 United States dollar, but we are going to be giving that for free. And the incorporation will be coming up with, the incorporation is going to be coming up with EIN, which is known as Employers Identification Number. So that actually gives you a free incorporation. And with that, you can set up your business in the United. You can set up or open a bank account in your business name here in the US. And with that, you can still apply for your United States B1 visa, so that you can come to the United States only for the purpose of business. So I indulge. I'm indulging each and every one of us pay the very best of attention. Let's listen with all keen interest, pay rapt attention, take notes where necessary, so that you'll be standing a chance to get your business incorporated in the US all at a zero cost. So let's get started straight to the point now. Study abroad in Canada is what we are looking at. But first, we are going to look at some terminologies or some of the things you need to know before you start embarking in studying in Canada. So now, when we talk about study abroad in Canada, first and foremost now, before you get to apply to an institution, there are certain things to look out for. Of all those things I'm about stating, the most important is DLI license number. You don't have to toy with that. Now, in recent times or in the past now, so many persons actually apply to some institutions online for license of most persons in most varsities in British Columbia. And that attempt now led to the introduction of the provincial attestation later. So the first thing to know is, or the first thing to do is, before you get to start applying, before you get to apply,
Get some money, man. What even listen?
Sorry, Mr. Wealth, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, now great. Now I stated an instance before you actually get to apply for any institution of varsity, be it college or be it private or public institute in Canada. The first thing to look out for is their DLI license, and I'm going to give a little bit of instances on that, and we are still going to verify some varsities or some institutions if their license are still binding or if their license has been revoked. Because earlier this year, sometimes in January, the government of Canada revoked the license of most of the universities in British Columbia. So students who were actually studying in those universities need not continue their programs. And that was actually a bad omen. And beyond that, also now, we also have to look out for some scammage website because sometimes scammers could clone some of these varsity websites. And upon cloning them now, they start giving admission, people start paying tuition, only to get to find out that these institutions don't exist. So the first thing to note is before you get before you get to start applying to any school in Canada, the first thing to look out for is your DLI license. So if a university you are trying to apply for does not actually have DLI license, then in that case now, you to some extent might lose all of your money. You won't get a study permit to come over to study, and you might not get provincial attestation data. So that will actually put all of the effort to time, finances, and all to the drain. So first and foremost, before we actually get to apply to an institution, the first thing to look out for is if that institution actually have DLI number. So I know someone will be asking, what is DLI number, or how do I go about checking the DLI number? The good thing about online application when it comes to government of nations is basically at the time now, all the information you need, you can actually source that out from the government website. So right now, we'll be going over to the government website to actually get to see a few of the universities that are recognized and their DLI license is still valid with the government. But before we do that, first thing to notice, before I apply for an institution, the first thing to look out for is the DLI license. So you have to check through the institution I'm about applying for, do they have DLI license? If they have DLI license, then that is actually a good one. Now, once they have DLI license, you're actually in good hands. That shows that you won't lose your money, you won't be scammed. But outside having DLI license, following the introduction of provincial attestation data, most varsities in Canada don't have or can't issue provincial attestation letter, which is popularly known as PAL, until March 2025. Do we get that now? So another thing to look out for is if a particular varsity has DLI license, you have to check if they can give you provincial attestation letter. Although vis-a-vis, the provincial attestation letter at the time does not apply to people who are going for postgraduate program in masters or doctorate degrees. But for people who are going for diplomas, bachelor degrees, post-baccalaureate baccalaureate programs, a provincial attestation letter will be needed. So let that be enshrined in our minds. Outside the LI license, I have to know if the varsity can issue PAL. The only varsities at the time in Canada or post-secondary education in Canada that can issue provincial attestation letter is only public or government-owned varsities. Private varsities at the time can't issue that license. So at the time of making application, if they have DLI license, the next thing to look out for is, can this varsity give me a provincial attestation letter? If they can't give a provincial attestation letter, and you're actually making or putting an application for a bachelorate degree or a diploma or a baccalaureate or a post-baccalaureate program, you won't be able to actually get your study permit because study permits will not be issued without the provincial attestation letter. But slightly sometimes in June, some private varsities were given provincial attestation license, so they can actually get a provincial attestation letter on your behalf. And one of those schools we are going to be looking at is the CBU. CBU is actually a university somewhere in Canada and is situated in Sydney in Canada. So CB is a private varsity, and at this time now, they have gotten their provincial attestation letter. So a few private varsities at the time have gotten their PAL license to issue provincial attestation letter on behalf of the government or the province where they are situated to their students. but some have not been given that license. Now, the next thing to also look out for, I don't understand, coming from the African continent, the sole reason why we make applications, especially for study abroad, is simply not because we want to study. Neither is it because we want to acquire knowledge. It's because we want to use that as a migration route. So now you should also get to know that not every varsity in Canada can give you a PGWP. Not every varsity in Canada can give you PGWP. So you should know that. Now, when I mean PGWP, I mean post-graduation work permit. Now, post-graduation work permit, what it simply means, at the time when you are actually done with your program, now some varsities can't give you PGWP, while some varsities can. So you also still have to look at, can this varsity in question give me PGWP, which is the postgraduate work permit. So if the varsity can, then you're in good hands. But if the varsity cannot, then at the completion of your program, you have to come back to your home country. But thank God for this section, because we are going to see how we'll cushion for all of these challenges. Even if the institution does not have PAL, can I still study? Yes, you can. There are still ways to go about them. If the institution at the time now will not give me postgraduate work permits, what do I do? Yes, there are 1,001 things you can still do to stay in Canada even without a postgraduate work permit. So these are some of the things we should remember. Now, first I said, before I get to apply, the first thing to check is DLI license. DLI license is very important. So I will show us all the varsities in Canada. A few times, some persons will say, how do I know a particular varsity that I will apply to? Instead of just junketing around or juggling Google through Google, trying to search and all, or making inquiries or asking third parties, you can get all of this first-hand information directly from the Government of Canada website. You'll see every varsity and their DLI license. And in the course of this section, we are going to see how to verify them. And beyond that, also now you'll see varsities that can give you provincial attestation later, which is the new policy for approval of the study permit. And you also get to see varsities that can give you postgraduate work permits. So all of that will actually be looked into. Now, before we delve into that now, let's just get to talk a little bit about reasons why I should study in Canada. Now, one among viable reasons why people should come to Canada to study is one, high quality education. When it comes to educational standard, Canada has actually better varsities with top ranking when it comes to universities and colleges globally. So if you get to find yourself in Canada, it's actually a big plus, especially when you're coming to study, either for your first degree, either for a certificate or diploma program, a baccalaureate program, a post-baccalaureate, a post-diploma, a master's program, a postdoctorate program. Canada has one of the best education. Like, if you get study in Canada, you will not just be enjoying some benefit that comes with it. The best of education is what you'll be getting. And beyond that, Canada is also cultural diverse. So there's cultural diversity in Canada. Canada is multicultural society. And pretty much in Canada, you'll find one person from all over the world. There's just one person who came from another part of the world who is in Canada. So when it comes to multicultural society, they are truly advanced when it comes to that. So you can actually get to have different cultures and traditions from all over the world while studying in Canada. And beyond that, Canada is one of the safest countries in the world. Unlike the US here now, I do understand government are putting measures to cope for some of these things, but sometimes people are sometimes victims of stray bullets, killings here and there, and all of that. Even I could say outside insurgency in some parts of the African continent, there are more recorded killings in the US than even in Africa. Not from terrorist sects or insurgent groups, but from even citizens and other persons who are in the state. So, but when it comes to Canada, there is little or no such thing. So when it comes to a safer environment, you will get that to the fullest. And people in Canada are polite and welcoming. The racial discrimination in Canada is to a percentage 0. So it's not a place where you get to study and begin to suffer from some sort of racial discrimination as some part of Europe like United Kingdom, or even if you are studying in places like Dublin in Ireland, there are so many racial discrimination in all of those places. But when it comes to Canada, you rarely get to see that. Everybody is respected equally. And there are more work opportunities in Canada than in other parts of the North American continent, or even in some part of Europe, or even in some part of Asia. There are more work opportunities. So Canada has been the reservoir for international workers. So invariably, studying as an international student in Canada avails you opportunity to work. In what sense? While doing your program, you're entitled to 20 hours working time in a week. So in a week, you're permitted to work for 20 hours, averaging 4 hours per day. So with that, you can still make some stipend. And during breaks or during holidays, when you are not in section, you're entitled to work 40 hours per week, just like a regular international or foreign worker or a regular citizen who works in Canada. So these are just some of the benefits you get to have. And Canada is actually open to give a postgraduate work permit to stay and work in Canada for up to 3 years. It's actually by far one of the largest the world has actually recorded. So work opportunities in Canada avails out so much available for persons who actually want to come to Canada to study. So you stand a better chance to work while you are studying. You stand a chance to work while you are in section, out of section, or during break period. And when you are done with your program, you can easily get your PGWP, especially if you're actually doing your program with a varsity. We'll look at all of these institutes who have PGWP live on today's section, so that when you want to make applications, you actually just go straight to what you want, so that you don't get to apply to several institutes. And before I proceed further, let me register in our minds that most of the varsities in Canada require application fee. So you will not want to start taking chances. Imagine you are applying to 5 schools just to see which one gets to give you admission. And some schools you have to pay 120 Canadian dollars application fee. Some you have to pay 80, some you have to pay 200, some you have to pay 250, some you even pay 500 Canadian dollars application fee. So you will not want to just throw money around in an attempt to actually get yourself an admission. So, but what do? We'll have it well discussed so that whenever you are making application, I'll leave a few names that I can guarantee you getting admission easy peasy, and some approaches on how to go about them. But time will fail us. Canada has some amazing landscapes, good mountains and forests. There are more islands in Canada than in most parts of the world, because Canada is even an island nation. So there are a lot of beaches, so many things to actually catch outdoor funds for. And in Canada, Canada has popular cities. Just like I said the last time, the capital of Canada is Ottawa. So yeah, Ottawa is an amazing, it's one of the popular cities for international students. Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, Calgary. Those places are the popular cities in Canada. Now, let's look at steps to study. Then, when these steps are discussed, then we will now delve into the government website and start seeing all of this to a place of practicality. Now, the first steps to study, just like a conventional institute. For instance, several years ago, I could remember I sat for JAM and applied for one of the varsities in South in Delta State to be precise. The same applies to Canada. But unlike Canada, you don't have to start doing the UTME examination to actually get yourself qualified. All you need is just your high school document. And when we get talking about high school is simply equivalent of your O level. I could remember a few times ago, there's this dichotomy that NACO is not accepted, WAEC is accepted. So some persons who had NACO needed to sit for WAEC in order for them to apply. But the good news is any O level is accepted, be it NECO, be it NAPTEP. I don't know if there are other ones, be it GCE, be it the West African Examination Council exams. Any of those ones is applicable for admission. So for those who are coming for the first degree, maybe you want to come for either a certificate program, a diploma program, or most likely you are coming for a degree or a baccalaureate program. Just an equivalent of high school certificate is what is needed. And there are programs you can do in Canada that are called matured students. We are going to look at them. So matured students are usually vocational programs. And by far, they are most affordable. They are very easy to admission. The cost is less, very, very less. You don't get to spend so much to actually come for vocational programs. And they even have more work opportunities than even the conventional formal education that you will be wanting to pursue. So for most vocational programs, what is just needed, the only qualification is a matured student. And what do they mean by matured student? Just anyone who is 18 years and above is a matured student. And if you are between the range of 22 and 21, you are even a very good fit for this kind of programs. You don't need any form of qualification to actually get to apply. You can actually get to come in either ways. Now, other things to also remember before we talk about application is some of us must have had instances where they will be asking for English proficiency exams. And when we talk about English proficiency exams, tests, language proficiency tests, we're talking about the likes of IELTS, we're talking about the likes of TOEFL, TEF, and others. But now, these exams are only applicable for people who never got to learn or acquire any form of knowledge, either in a francophone country or in an anglophone country. When we get talking about francophone in this view, we are simply talking about countries that speak French. You get that now. So if you actually acquire any form of education in French, you don't need the IELTS for most schools. But there are exceptions to this, which I'm going to see put a clause to. You don't need the IELTS, neither do you need TOEFL or any of those language proficiency tests. And if you're an individual or an applicant or a student or someone who actually wants to come study in Canada and you actually acquired any form of knowledge in English language, you don't still need the TOEFL or any of those language tests or language proficiency tests. The reason is because vis-a-vis now, Canada actually have two major languages. That's why it's by far one of the best places to be. English and French. Those are the major or the most common languages spoken by Canadians or people or international students who get to come to Canada. So in the view where you actually get to have any form of education in English or any form of education in French, you truly to some extent don't need the IELTS. And there are several institutes in Canada and colleges and universities that we actually admit you as long as you actually acquire any form of education in English or French. Now, it should also be noted that there are some standardized tests to be taken. For instance, you are coming for a postgraduate program. Let's say you are coming for an MBA program. It's expected that you should actually have a certain amount of passes in GMAT, in GRE, and in SAT. So there are certain programs that require standardized tests. So if you are coming for those programs, aside the fact that you studied in English or you studied in French, it is pre-believed or still a belief that you should have taken some standardized tests. And among these are the SAT, the GRE, the GMAT programs. Though a few universities or a few colleges will still give an exception to this. But you should note that when you are coming for most postgraduate programs, especially masters in business admin or any related to MBA program, you need to have a standardized test passed either in GMAT, in SAT, or in GRE. So these are just a few to the process. So the first steps to getting yourself ready to come study in Canada, which we are going to be looking at, is first, don't forget there are three types of institutions in Canada. And in these three types of institutions, you can acquire any of the following. You can either get a bachelor degree, a baccalaureate, you can get certificates, you can get diploma, you can get postgraduate programs like postgraduate baccalaureate, you can get master's program, you can get doctorate degrees and all. So now, but when you are applying, the following should be noted. The requirement for these institutions varies, and the cost implication also what varies. So the types of institutions we have in Canada are basically three, and they are mostly called post-secondary education. So we have universities. So there are several universities, like University of Toronto, University of Ottawa. There are several universities in Canada. So what do the universities do? What the universities do basically is they offer undergraduate and graduate programs. So when you're coming to the universities now, you're actually coming from undergraduate programs and graduate programs. Graduate programs is what we call postgraduate programs, like either a postgraduate diploma, a postgraduate baccalaureate, a postgraduate master's, or a postgraduate doctorate degree. So they are universities, and we also have colleges. Now, what colleges do basically is colleges focuses on diploma and certificate programs, right? So a few times when you are applying to a particular college, for instance, example of a college is CIMT. CIMT is a college. So when someone is applying to CIMT, for instance, what you get basically is you are either coming for a certificate program or you are coming for a diploma program. We are going to look more on this shortly. And lastly, also now we have polytechnics, just like in Africa where there are polytechnics. So we also have polytechnics in Canada, right? So what they do, they provide technical education and more majorly vocational education, like education that requires skills, education that has to do with some kind of handiwork or something that doesn't require so much of the intellectual progress, but the engagement of the muscles. So there are also polytechnics in Canada. So before you get to apply, first you have to know what you're applying for. Are you coming for a bachelor's degree? Are you coming for a master's? Are you coming for a doctorate degree? Are you coming for a baccalaureate? Are you coming for a diploma? Are you coming from a certificate? And you agree with me, if I'm to apply for a certificate program, then colleges should be my target. Example for that is CICC. We're going to look at all of these things. Now, when you know what you are coming for, the very next thing to look out for is what program do you want to study in these places? The most popular programs in Canada are STEM. When we talk about STEM, we're talking about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And they have programs around business and management. They have programs around health sciences. That's where you get the medical field. They have programs around social sciences and humanities, as well as environmental studies. So for any program you are trying to come in for, and they also have the vocational skills too, like carpentry, like plumbing, like mention it. They have vocational skills as well. And the good news about the reason why the vocational skills are the most susceptible and most accepted is they are less expensive and the requirements are minimal, and you don't require PAL for them. You don't require provincial attestation later. And the availability of the ease with which you can get a job is 100%. So I think at the end of this section, a PDF will be shared where I'm going to spell out all the vocational schools in Canada as well as their tuition, so that if you actually have interest in them, you can actually get to apply. So how do we go started? If I want to actually start or make application to study abroad, what's the first thing to do? The first thing is I'll choose a program and an institution. So first, you have to look for a program that aligns with your interests and career goals. Then you actually look for an institution that applies them. It could either be a university, it could either be a college, or it could be a polytechnic or a vocational center. Now, once that is in place, the next thing to look out for is to reach out for their requirements. What are their requirements, or what do I need to actually apply for XYZ course? For instance, I'm coming to read, let's say, chemical engineering, for instance. Fine. Since I'm coming for chemical engineering, it's most likely I have to go to university. So which university offers chemical engineering? So you have to put that in place. After ascertaining that university can offer you a PAL for first degree programs, and they can also to some extent still give a PGWP, but PGWP is not open to first degree programs. They are not open to undergraduate programs. They are only open to graduate programs, which is known as the postgraduate. But in the case where you are doing an undergraduate program, how do you intend to stay in Canada? That will still be discussed. That's what we call the exchange program. You can actually get to Canada and get an exchange program and still get your permit to stay and work. Now, once you have ascertained that you meet their requirements, the admission requirements, you have all it takes to actually apply. The very next thing to do is submitting applications. Don't forget, just like I said, now you're going to fill an online application form. You pay application fee. Then you are going to attach some supporting documents such as transcript, letters of recommendation, and personal statements. So you're going to do that. Don't forget your personal statement. That is what we call SOP. Well, a few times, for some of us who have actually done this, you get find out, you tell your client or the agent who is helping you out there, so you need an SOP, especially when it's when it's a graduate program. So you need your personal statement. And what does the personal statement entails? The personal statement simply entails all the information about yourself and reason why you are coming for that admission. Now, once that is done and you have a course or a program you want to study, you have identified an institution that offers that same course aligned with your career goal and interest, and you checked your credentials or your documents, you actually meet the admission requirements, then you go ahead and submit your application, fill in the online application form, pay the necessary application fee, and then get to submit all your supporting documents, for instance, such as transcripts, letters of recommendation. Yeah, you need letter of recommendation from 1 or 2 persons. But there are still a few persons, there are still a few varsities where all of these things will not be needed. And we are going to do a practical in the course of this section. Now, you now need your SOP, which also known as your personal statement. Then once you are done doing this now, then successful applicants will receive an offer of admission. And this might be conditional based on final grades or other criteria. Usually vis-a-vis, for most varsities or colleges, what they get to give you at first is called the conditional letter of offer of and conditional offer letter. That is the first thing you'll be given. Then after the conditional to make application for your study permit. in the case where PAL is not needed. But if PAL is needed, the institution will give you your PAL letter. Then with that PAL, which is the provincial attestation letter, you can now go ahead and make application for your study permit. Now, hello, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Before.
Okay, yeah, great. Okay, thanks so much. Now, I said the next approach is the study permit. So when you have gotten your letter of acceptance, then the next thing to do is to head over to the Canadian website and apply for your study permit. Now, let's look at the steps on how to go about that before we now go to have our practicals. Now, applying for a study permit is easy peasy. All you need is apply for a study permit from Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada, which is the IRCC. So you go to IRCC and make application. So when you make application with IRCC, we'll get to talk a few about that. Then we'll see how to go about that. And with that done, you will be able to see how the entirety of the system work. Now, before you make application to IRCC, now what do you need? You need the following. First is the proof of acceptance. The proof of acceptance is your letter of acceptance, right? You must have your letter of acceptance. If you don't have your letter of acceptance, there's no how you can apply for the Canadian study permit. Now, the next is your proof of financial support. And this has actually imposed a great challenge. Today now, for you to actually apply to a Canadian institute, you need a proof of financial support. And those things goes beyond 20 million Nigerian naira by whatever exchange rate Naira is exchanging for Canada today on the I and E window. So you need a proof of financial support. Then your passport, apparently you must have that. Then once you are done with that now, you need police certificate in some cases, which is known as the police character certificate. So you have to go to some designated police station, reach out to their DPOs, then you'll be given a police character certificate ascertaining that you don't have any association or involvement with crime or anything that has relative to terrorism. Then, and you also need a medical exam. And basically, it has always been for TB. So you have to do your TB test, COVID test, and a few other ones. Then after this is done, your biometrics, you have to go submit the application, schedule an appointment with VFS Center, and go down for your biometric. Then you now wait for your permit to be sent. Usually, the study permit is valid for the length of your program. What do I mean? So what I meant is, if your program is 2 years, you'll be given a 2-year study permit. If your program is 4 years, for instance, an undergraduate program, you'll be given 4 years. But there are programs you will do in Canada that you don't need study permits. They are called the short course program. We are going to talk about them. That is by far the fastest, the quickest, and cheapest way to get to Canada. There are short course programs that are less 4,000 Canadian dollars when it comes to the total tuition cost. We'll look at them. And you don't need a study permit for this one. And approval is easy peasy. We'll get to look at all of that. So usually the duration of your study permit is in direct proportion to the length of your program. Now, you don't need study permit for programs that are less than 6 months. So if you are coming for a program that is less than 6 months, then you don't need study permit. Study permits will not be needed because the length of the program is less than 6 months. Study permits are usually given between 6 months and above, depending on the duration of your program. So when you are coming for short course program, study permit is not needed. So that actually cushions the effect of the waiting time and proof of funds of about 20 something million Nigerian naira just to make up for about 20,000 something Canadian dollar as the needed amount. So you don't need all of these things. When it comes to the short course program, we'll look at that. I pray time avails us so that we can touch all of these things in depthly. Now, plus an additional 90 days. This should also be noted. Now, if your study permit, okay, I'm coming for let's say an MBA program in Canada. My program is 2 years. I'm going to be given a 2-year study permit plus an additional 90 days. Do you get that? No. So if your program is 6 months, you'll be given a 6-month study permit plus an additional 90 days. If your program is 1 year, you'll be given a 1-year study permit plus an additional 90 days. Right? So that should also be what noted. Relatively, the cost of studying in Canada on average is between 15,000 to 25,000. Living expenses are approximately 10,000 to 15,000 Canadian dollars per year, but this depends on the city. This depends on the city, yeah. Because if you're somewhere in Vancouver, you can't spend 10,000 per year. But if you're in some places of maybe Prince Island or Saskatoon, you can spend that. If you're in places like New Brunswick, oh goodness, you can spend that. But the challenge with those places is opportunities are minimal. So for times you actually want to do 20 hours work time in a week, or maybe when you're on break, you want to work 40 hours. You might not get ample opportunity like someone who is in Ottawa, someone who is in Manitoba, someone who is in Toronto, Montreal, or someone who is even in Vancouver. The opportunities will not be compared to them. And that is the vivid reason why most persons who are in Prince Island, most people who are in Sydney, they're still trying to find their way to Toronto. They're still trying to find their way to Vancouver. Some persons actually came to New Brunswick, but now New Brunswick it's just like a regular community, an agrarian community. So opportunities are not so vast. So when they find themselves in New Brunswick, they start still working their way to come to the city. Don't forget, I actually mentioned 5 major cities, but we won't go over to that. Now, when it comes to financial aid, yeah, most varsities give you scholarship. Many institutions offer merit-based scholarships for international students. So that should be noted. That should be noted. Most varsities will give you scholarship, and some also give some kind of relief aids. Maybe you'll be asked, they'll give you 30% off on the total cost of your tuition. And beyond that, also now, there are Canadian government graduate scholarships, especially the Venia Canada Graduate Scholarship. It's one scholarship that has actually given opportunity to several international students to come study in Canada. So that should also be remembered. But when it comes to study abroad on loan, I know that is actually the clause. I'm going to shed more light on that. There's still external scholarship. Some foundations still give, like the Melinda Gates Foundation gives international student scholarship, and several scholarships are still open, so we can explore them. And there are still some bodies who can allow you to study on loan. A bit that is Empower Finance. But the challenge that comes with Empower Finance is in most cases you will not get it. Now, I will shed light on how Empower Financing works. Then I will also tell us how you too can start your own international loan financing scheme. Now, Empower Financing, for instance, it's actually a US-based organization that is being financed by a US-based bank called the Lake Mill Bank. So the Lake Mill Bank are the ones financing the Empower Finance, or who finance international foreign students using the Empower platform. And the core requirement for this, for you who actually wants to run similar packages, because imagine if you have autonomy on this, you don't have to start relying on Prodigy Finance, on Pro Finance, and some of these bodies who actually run all of these things. You too can still take direct partnership with Lake Bank, and they'll still finance you. States, you must have employer's identification number, and you must have a business bank account in the US. And lastly, you must have your ITIN. I'm going to talk about ITIN and the cost of the section. ITIN is synonymous to SSN, is individual tax identification number. So you need that for actually participating. And with your ITIN, you can still participate in all government decisions. You can still partake from government grants, and maybe anything that comes to the citizens as well. We are going to look at how you two can get that, not necessarily being in the US or not coming down to the US, right? So that will still be discussed. Now, what are some of the work opportunities as study abroad student? We have on-campus work. So while you're on campus, you can work. You don't need work permits to do this. You can work inside the campus for as much as you want. There are no durations to on-campus work. So what we mean by on-campus work is maybe I'm a student of the University of Ottawa. Maybe there are some openings or jobs, or maybe anything within the university, inside of the university. I can work unlimitedly as long as I'm inside the university. So that should be remembered. Now, but when it comes to off-campus work, you only have 20 hours per week during academic sections. full-time during scheduled breaks, right? And when I mean full-time during scheduled breaks, what it simply means when you're on break, you can work 40 hours because the allotted time for everyone to work here is 40 hours, right? So when you're on break, you have full time, which is 40 hours per week. So you can work 8 hours per day while you're on break. And sometimes the break intervals are 2 months. So you can work for 2 months, 40 hours, right? So that avails you ample time while you are studying. Now, and lastly, also now, you can still get your post-graduation work permit. For instance, if you're actually doing a graduate program from an institute that actually gives postgraduate work permits, then you stand a chance to get up to 3 years after completing your program. You have 3 years to stay in Canada and work, and 3 years is enough for you to get your residence, your permanent residence. And if you're actually schooling in a university that don't have postgraduate work permit, you can now explore the exchange program. The exchange program is what we'll be looking at the later part of today's section. You can explore the exchange program. And what are some of the things you should know? While studying in Canada, you need to get your health insurance. It's a must, but it varies with province. Some province offer that to international students, while others you have to look for a private insurance, right? So these are just a few of the things to remember. So without taking much of our time, let's just dive into practicals where I get to share my screen. So what we're going to do while I'm sharing my screen, I'm going to share some DLI licensed universities or institutions, and we get us a PDF of all of those schools so that you don't have to strain or stress yourself to go about them. So you are going to see all DLI licensed universities, and beyond that also now, you can see universities can give me PAL, XYB can give me PAL, so that you don't apply to universities that can give you PAL. And you can also see universities that can give you postgraduate work permit. And in the later part of the section, before we leave Canada to discuss other regions, we are going to look at short course program, which I said is by far one of the fastest routes or the quickest way to actually Canada with little cost, that you don't have to use so much, just little amount or with little cost, you can actually start moving to Canada. And the beauty of the short course program, you can pay at 4 installments, less cost, and in 4 installments, you can actually get to move your way or find your way to Canada. So let me get ready now to share my screen. And with that now, we will now get to look at some of these varsities. So I'm still trying to set up my screen. I'll be sharing my screen shortly. Now, but before I do now, I don't know, maybe just one person should ask question because I'm still trying to set up my laptop. So is there anyone who got a question so that I can just hear your question while I'm still setting up my laptop? Is there anyone who got a question?
Yeah, I think Linda can ask her question. Linda's hand
Okay,
is
Linda,
up.
please.
Sharon.
Good evening. Yes, I have a question. This,
okay, great.
It's about the tourists or visiting visa to Canada. If I want to apply from Nigeria, I'm out from Nigeria. What if I want to apply? Is it good? Nowadays in Nigeria, all these agency, most of them doesn't even have anything to give. Only they're after money. Some even don't have idea about the traveling, but they just package the document, give to someone to go and apply. Sometimes deny, sometimes work. It's just work like a miracle. But what I want to ask is, what is let me say, like a guarantee to apply for tourist visa for Canada? Is it reliable, or we should try a student or working visa?
Okay, now to answer your question, my screen is already set up. Now, what I'll say at the time is your interest or your goal is actually what we give the platform as to what type of application you should go for. For instance, if I'm a graduate and I don't want to study, I think the work route should be the best option. And talking about the work route, there are more than 5 options on that. But in a scenario where I actually want to use the study route, maybe I want to come study and I don't have funds. If you have funds, you can come in for a direct program. But if you don't have so much funds, you can come in for a short course program. So the short course program are less expensive. And with the short course program, you can still get an exchange program for a work permit and a study permit. So it's less expensive and it's by far the fastest. Although I will let it be at this explanation because we'll still talk about the short course program in the course of this section as well as the study permit. So now I think my screen is all set up. So I will share my screen. I believe that during the time I'll be explaining the short course program, you will actually have explicit knowledge. Now, first, let me get to say the reason why we have in this section is to equip every participant to be able to handle their own application as well as that of their clients. So the platform is to actually give you all the information you need to become a juggernaut or to have mastery at your profession as a consultant, as a traveling consultant, so that at every sphere or ramification where your service is needed, you are going to deliver that to the peak of the delivery, not using common sense, not using guess knowledge, or even using third parties. I don't understand. The culture for Africa has always been, I set up an organization, call it XYZ Traveling and Tour, get my CAC, get license,
Your
get
mic
a
is
very
breaking,
nice
sir.
office. Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yes,
Is
yes,
it
yes, we
better
can
now?
hear you.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
We can hear you, sir.
Okay, great.
Yes,
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, now in a bit now.
I can hear
Okay,
you.
great.
we can
Now
hear
the
you.
system for Africa has always been, okay, great. For instance, let me cite a practical instance. It's not just a Nigeria thing. Sometimes last week I was in Ghana, for instance. I was in Ghana just to do some appraisal and overview. I go find out that for most persons or agencies in Ghana, the few interactions I interacted with people, because we also have a branch there. So, but I was able to talk with some other traveling agencies since I also spent 2 days there. I go find out that and can't be corrected. Let me say, I can say 60% of them only have these offices, but have third parties do the services for them. So the reason why we are having sections like this is to equip everybody adequately, both especially from the immigration lawyer, so that everybody, regardless your sphere, you can still come into the traveling space and deliver services to a point of an approval. So that's why we're having these sections. So the slight appeal is you are acquiring this knowledge, one, for yourself, only to help other Africans or other Nigerians who actually want to explore the migration pathway to any part of the Western world. Because when you are fully equipped, you will be able to give the best of the service. And 1,001 people will not run into wrong hands or people who are not experts in what they do, right? So, but I just want to believe the person who asked the question as we move on to discuss the short course route with a practical instance. We are going to look at the practical instance and it will blow your mind. And a get to go package on Canada is will now help us with a PDF that will show us all the designated license institute as well as how to get partnership with them. Because as a traveling agent, it's worthy of note that you partner with some of these varsities so that when you're applying for admission, you get admission easy peasy. For instance, I know a few varsities in Canada who will give you admission in 2 to 4 business days. Do you see that now? It's less distress, it doesn't take so much time, and you don't have to pay any application fee until the admission has been granted. So how do you go about them? All of that to be exposed so that you actually have an amazing traveling experience. For a few persons who are taking this class who have taken this class with us before, I'm actually not coming from the traveling space. I was coming from a petroleum engineering space. But when I got to see how resourceful, how gainful the traveling space is, so I needed to start pursuing careers, even to becoming an immigration lawyer. So you stand a better chance when you have the right information. There is no better industry than the traveling industry, especially for the African market. African market want persons, trusted agencies that will give them the very best of service. And that is a vivid or viable reason why we're having sections like this. I think about 65 persons. Let's say this is 5 persons are now expert when it comes to rendering services in their different states, in their different regions in Africa. It simply means to a place of assurance, we have 65 best hands that those agencies or clients or Africans can actually rely on to get the very best of service. So let me go to share my screen. So first, I talked about the DLI license. We'll know about what the DLI license is and how to go about that. So when we say DLI license, we mean Designated Learning Institute. So that is what DLI license means. So let me share my screen. So the first thing to do is to visit the official Government of Canada website, which is canada.ca. It's accessible, it's open to anyone in any part of the world, right? So now if you can see my screen now, I'm in the official Government of Canada website, and this is English because I understand English. Now, for me to apply or for schools, I have to go check if the school I'm about applying has DLI license. Although most schools will state it in their website, but some might not. But if at all the school you're applying for does not, so how do you go about it? All you need to do is come to the official Government of Canada website, which is canada.ca. Now, when you come, all I need to do is immigration and citizenship. If you can't see my screen, immigration and citizenship, I'll get to click on that because it's a visit, work, study, immigrate. So apply to travel, study, work, or immigrate to Canada, right? So you can see. So if I want to study, I want to work, I'll get all of that here. So all I need to do now is to go to study because I actually want to come to Canada as a student so that I can get a study permit or a student work permit, right? So what do? I'll click on study. So when I click on study, now it will take me to, there are so many informations you need. Find out if you need study permit. Now, about institutions, or there are courses you come for to do in Canada that you don't need study permit. Example, diploma programs that are less than 6 months. That's where short course programs come in, and they're less. They are accessible, less expensive, less cost. You can explore them and gain mastery, on how all of these things work. But now I want to see how I can get a study permit, right? Because I want to show some DLI license schools. So I want to see, I say DLI license is designated learning institution. So let's click on this now. So when I click now, I'll see a list of all the designated,
We can't see your screen, sir. I don't know if I'm the only one.
learning institutes in Canada. And
If you're not seeing it, adjust your phone now.
okay, let me share my.
I can't see it too.
Okay, I don't know if my screen is visible now.
It's
Yes, I
visible.
can see.
It's visible now.
Yes, I can
Adjust
see
with
it
our
on my
phones.
own end here.
Touch the phone screen. You can adjust this.
Okay.
Adjust your phone. Touch
Okay,
touch
great
it.
now.
The screen
Okay.
is visible
I
now.
think it's visible now. It's visible now.
Okay, great now. Thanks, everyone.
We
Now, watch
we
it.
can't see it.
To
We
apply for
can't
study
see it,
permit,
yeah.
The screen is not
okay,
visible
now
at my end, though.
Can you zoom your screen?
Check your network. We can see your screen.
Okay. Okay, great now. Now, the first approach is, let's look at a list of designated learning institutes. Now, the very first thing to note is, if a particular institution you're applying for is not DLI, you can't get an approved acceptance offer letter, which is not the letter of acceptance, which is the LOA. Now, if you don't have the LOA, you can apply for the study permit. Remember, but the only thing you need later, then you apply for study permit. There's no such thing called study visa, right? I do get to say a few times, some people will tell you, we have to get your study permit, we have to get your study visa. All of that doesn't exist. There's only study permit, as well as there's no such thing called work visa. What we have is also work permit, right? So it's work permit you'll be given, and that's it. That's it. So now let's look at a list of designated learning institution. Now watch it. To apply for it, you need an acceptance letter from a designated learning institution, DLI. A DLI is a school approved by provincial or territorial government to host international students. So there are certain schools in Canada who don't have this license. So before you go to apply, the first thing you need to do is you have to check the school where I am now. And if the school is not on this list, don't stress applying because you won't get to come to Canada to study. Now, and still don't forget that all primary and secondary schools in Canada are designated learning institutes, although primary are not included in this list. So what is included in this list is post-secondary school. I remember the last time I talked about post-secondary, I said post-secondary includes colleges, include polytechnics, include universities. So if the school you are studying, those need to apply to a new DLI in other circumstances. Remember, I said sometimes this year, most schools in British Columbia loses their DLI status. Their DLI license were lost. And after that, all the students who were studying in all of those schools need to start applying to other varsities again. And that is a whole lot of wastage of time. So let's go on and postgraduate work permit, blah, blah, blah. You also have to check, not all the institutions and not all program study make you eligible. So you can't get postgraduate work permits in all schools. So if you are wanting to get a 3 years work permit in Canada, you also have to check if the school or the institution you're applying for meets all the other criteria for you to get that. So let us look at some of the lists. So what we'll do now is, if I'm applying, Canada has 12 provinces. So there are basically 12 provinces in Canada. So let's assume I'm applying in Alberta, right? So if you're applying in Alberta, what you need to do is, if the school you want to apply is in Alberta, just select Alberta. Watch me. I'll click on Alberta. So these are all the schools in Alberta. There are 1,670 schools in Alberta. So now you can see, if you can see my screen, ABM College, you can see the city is in Calgary. Postgraduate work permit, no. So from this list, the only school that can give you postgraduate work permit from the first 10 this year is Adventure Aviation. So if you study in all of these schools, whether for an undergraduate program or a graduate program, you will not get your PGWP. And this is their DLI license. So for instance, now, the school that I'm taking now, Adventure Aviation is the only school that can do postgraduate. This is their DLI, if you can see my screen. Okay, now let's do a rough start now. We are going to pick a few random universities and check them here to see if they can give us postgraduate work permits or if we can actually get to studying them or not. So I'll be going back to the section now. I'll pick some persons at random. I'm going to pick, if I now, thank you. Okay, now, can you just tell us any university or college or polytechnic you know in Canada? Let's.
Hello?
It's
I
breaking,
can't hear you
please. It's
clearly.
breaking. I'm not hearing anything.
Yes, it's breaking.
Brandon.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Bro, you answer the question. I want to join the platform. Maybe it's that one that is causing the who is
Hello, please admin should check.
Kindly
Think
mute your
the
mics, please.
uh,
Mute your
The
okay.
mics,
network is very
everybody.
bad.
Yes, mute your mics. Let's use it to minimize the distraction, please, so that he can come back.
Hello, am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Not
Yes,
the
sir.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Just that
Yes,
it is keeping
yes, sir.
sense.
Hello, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
yes.
Just give him
We
some
can.
Okay,
minutes.
sorry,
Yes,
my candid apology. Okay, now, okay, great now. So, Fatou Olusegun, can I just get you the
Sir.
university you wanted us to check? Can you just mention any university in Canada? Let's say like postgraduate. They can give us postgraduate.
Is it from the list on the screen? Hello? Is it from the list on the screen?
Yes. Hello? Hello? Trent University,
Okay.
Trent.
Just give us
From the
another
list of
list.
this
No, a
book,
new list. Yeah, I can.
The new
UP, Trent University.
no idea, sir.
Trent University, Trent
Please, I'm
University.
seeing it on the
You should
Trent.
always answer when he
University
call
of
your name. Don't be answering chorus answers. When he mention your name, you answer the question, please.
My name is Emeka Chukwemeka Buzome, Trent University.
Please, sir, he didn't call your name to ask you the question. He called somebody's name to ask the question.
All right.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay,
yes.
sir.
Apologies once again. Okay, now, so we want to look at Trent University, right? So Trent University is situated Trent University is actually in Ontario. So let's go check to see if Trent University is licensed. So here's Ontario. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay,
No.
okay, great now. Okay, let me share my screen again.
No, please, we can't see your screen.
Can you guys see my?
Can see?
Okay, let me share it
I can
again.
see.
No.
I can see it.
Yes,
we
So I'm
can.
sharing my screen again, please.
No more.
Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
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 Yes,
Yes.
yes, sir.
Yes, we can see.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
now
great now.
possible.
Okay, that's awesome. Now, someone said we should check Trent University to see if Trent University is licensed and if Trent University can also give us postgraduate work permit. So, and Trent University has two campuses, one in Ontario and the other in Oshawa. So let us go to Ontario province to check. Now, when I get to Ontario, I'm going to search for Trent University. Trent University is spelled Trent. So can you see now? If you can see my screen, this is Trent University. And this is their DLI license. So it's actually a designated learning institute. So Trent University can still give you provincial attestation later. Now, they are situated in Oshawa. That is actually where they are. And they have more than one campus. So they are in Oshawa, they're in Peterborough. So we can actually get to see now that Trent University actually have all of these things. So they can still offer you postgraduate work permits. So in that case now, it's actually a good option. So for people who want to apply to Trent University, it's a reputable, recognized DLI licensed institute, and you can get postgraduate work permits when you come for your graduate program. So that should be noted. And remembered. So that is that for Trent University. So I don't know. Let's just take one other university before we go to discuss short course program and the study abroad on loan, because time is going by and we still have several universities to look at. Can someone suggest another university we can actually look at?
Manitoba
Alberta.
University.
Alberta
Okay,
University.
Manitoba.
Manitoba, yes.
Okay, we'll do all now. So
Manitoba.
Manitoba University is what we have. Okay, great. Okay, now we are going to check Manitoba University. So let's go back to this and check. So let's go back. Manitoba, this is Manitoba, right? So we are going to select Manitoba. We are going to type University of Manitoba. Goes. So this is it here. Can you see University of Manitoba? It's located in Winnipeg, and this is your DLI license, right? So, and you can get postgraduate work permit here. So, University of Manitoba. Let me just get to say this: all provincial universities are public-owned universities. They are government-owned universities. So, government or public-owned universities they have DLI license. They'll give you'll get postgraduate work permit, and lastly also they can give you provincial attestation later. Okay, sorry, I went on a break now. So just like I stated earlier, all public-owned universities have DLI license, so it's most affordable. It's most advisable to study in a public or government-owned universities because you can get DLI license, you can get postgraduate work permit, especially when you are running a graduate program. And I did say graduate program include masters. Now let me get to say something. These are all graduate programs. Postbaccalaureate is a postgraduate program. Postgraduate diploma is a postgraduate program, but you will not get a postgraduate work permit from these universities. The reason is because remember I stated earlier that colleges offer basically certificate and diploma programs. So when you want to run a post-diploma program, you do that in colleges. And colleges, to some extent, can't give you postgraduate work permit. So people who can give postgraduate work permit are usually vocational institutes and universities that are owned by the government, usually public universities. Upon graduation from a graduate program in any of those universities, you are getting a 3 years work permit to the catch. But if you get to do that from a private university, you will not get that. So next, we are going to look at some private universities. Let's see if they have DLI license, and let's see if they have DLI license and if they can actually give us postgraduate work permits. So one of the schools we are going to look at now is Ambrose University. Let's get to check Ambrose University. We'll check the King's University. We'll check Vanguard College, and they will now get to ascertain if these people can actually give us postgraduate work permits. So this Ambrose University is situated in Alberta. So let's just get to start for Ambrose. Can you see now? Ambrose University has DLI license. Yes, they can offer you, but remind you they say details. So it means there are still a few things to note. These are the degrees that allow you to get a postgraduate, but time will fail us to actually. So now only if you study any of these programs, that is when you get a postgraduate work permit. But if you study programs outside of these ones, you will not get a postgraduate work permit. So noted, and that should also be remembered. It should be noted and it should be remembered. If you go to run programs, okay, let's go to Ambrose University so that we'll see a list of all the courses they offer. Then you now get to see courses in Ambrose University where you get a postgraduate work permit and courses where you don't get a postgraduate work permit. That's why it's worthy of note that when you are making application, because the agent might not tell you, tells you Ambrose University has, you get postgraduate work permit. But knowingly to you now, there are a few courses in Ambrose University where you can get, and there are other programs where you cannot be given a postgraduate work permit. For instance, now from the list on the Government of Canada website, Masters of Theology you'll be getting, but if you get to do masters in other fields, you might not get. So that should also be what remembered. So I'll just share my screen now so that we'll go to Ambrose University website and we are going to see some of the programs in that you possibly will get and those you will not get. So that when you're actually making application to Ambrose University, for instance, as a case study, you will not be able to get a postgraduate. So I'll share my screen now, and in doing that, I'm going to share Ambrose University. So this is Ambrose University. If you can see from the top of my screen, this is Ambrose University here. So let's just go to academics and see a list of their programs. And from this list of programs, some of those programs comes with PGWP, which is a postgraduate work permit, while some of these don't come with PGWP. An example of that, now, if you look at graduate diploma Christian studies. So let's go to check graduate diploma Christian studies to see if I can get a postgraduate work permit. So if you look at this list now, there's no graduate diploma Christian studies. It's only Master of Christian Studies will give me a postgraduate work permit. But if I get to do a graduate program, if I get to do a graduate diploma, as you can see here now, this will give me work permits, Masters of Christian Studies, but this will not give me a 3-year work permit. So that is just some examples of private universities. Okay, let me go back to share my screen. Let's get to check another university, another private university in Alberta. And we are going to be looking at Vanguard College. Vanguard College is situated in Edmonton. So let's get to search Alberta. Let's search Vanguard. Can you see now Vanguard College? If you can see my screen, offers their Vanguard College license is still valid. They are situated in Edmonton. They have campuses in Edmonton, and you can get a postgraduate work permit, but not on all courses, on a few courses. So that should also be what remembered. So vis-a-vis in a bit now, what we'll do as an extended hand is we are going to send a PDF of all of the schools in Canada, as well as those their DLI licenses, as well as those that offer postgraduate work permit and those that don't. So that when you are making application, you will actually have a full head knowledge of the universities to apply to and those not to what apply to, so that you will not be a victim. Because some persons who are trying to come to Canada, just like I stated earlier, are actually coming to Canada so that they can get a postgraduate work permit, at least 3 years to work in Canada. But if you don't get to do a graduate program, and some undergraduate programs also have basic to have postgraduate work permit. That should also be remembered. But if you get to do an in-depth, wider scope study, you'll get to see all of these things, right? So with this now, I think we'll be moving on to short course programs in Canada. I don't know if we'll be having ample or allotted time to talk about study abroad in UK, study abroad in Australia, study abroad in the US, or even study abroad in the Europe with case study using Germany. But let's get to talk about the short course program. So when we talk about short course program, they are called short courses program, reason because they are programs you do in less than 6 months. When we say short course, it simply means they are courses you run less than 24 weeks. You get that now. So any course you are doing in Canada that is less than 24 weeks, they actually call short course program. And they are majorly offered in colleges. So people or the post-secondary institute that offer these short courses programs are usually colleges. And what type of programs do they run? They run certificates programs, they run diploma programs, they run language courses. Some of you don't know that you can still come and do some language proficiency courses in Canada and be given visa to come to Canada for as low as 1,100 Canadian dollars. But we'll get to look at them. But let's talk about the short course program. So when we talk about short course program, what should be remembered is These are courses or programs you do that are usually less than 6 months. Sometimes they are beyond 6 months, but let me put a clause. If you get to do a short course program that is above 6 months, you will need a provincial attestation letter. So these are ways to bypass. For some persons who have difficulties getting provincial attestation letter, this is what you should know. If I come to Canada to do a short course program that is less than 6 months, I don't need provincial attestation letter. Or you don't even need a study permit for these courses. All you need is what is known as short course visiting visa. And these visas are granted readily. So you don't have to take the hassle, you don't have to take the pain, you don't need some voluminous bank statements or POF to tender. You don't need all of that. And easy peasy, you can come to Canada. So one thing you should note is short courses program are usually between 1 week, few weeks to 1 year. And when you run a short course program that is 6 months and beyond, you need a study permit and you might need provincial attestation letter. But if you run a program that is less than 6 months, you don't need study permit, you don't need a provincial attestation letter. The only thing you need is once you have your letter of acceptance, you can now apply for a short course visiting visa. So once you just get to apply for a short course visiting visa, you will be given the visa, and Eureka, you can now move to Canada. So we are going to look at all of that in a bit now. And don't forget, I said these short course programs are usually offered by colleges because they're usually certificate and diploma programs, which could be baccalaureate, which could be post-baccalaureate, which could be postgraduate diploma. So there are short courses like that. And like I said, these courses are basically certificate programs, they are diploma programs, they are professional development courses, there are also language courses. You can do a language course in Canada, and you will come to Canada without much ado, without much stress. I'll share my screen and we are going to look at some of these things. So it's pretty amazing to know that with a short course program, you can come to Canada, just a language program. We'll see all of that and we are going to explore that. Now, what are some of the popular fields for short courses? The popular field for short courses are usually business and management. Example, postgraduate diploma in business, whatever. Courses in entrepreneurship, digital marketing, and human resources. And there are short courses for information technology, for instance, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science. There are programs like that. We'll see them. There are also programs in healthcare like home support worker, personal support worker, dental office management. Mention it in arts and designs, hospitality and tourism, and language training. Example of language training is courses in English as a second language. It's called ESL, or French as a second language. You can decide to come to Canada to do FSL, which is French as a second language. And do you know the good news? You are going to be given a Canada visiting visa, depending on the duration or availability of whatever duration that is on your passport. So if you got a 10 years visa passport, you'll be given a 10 years visa, and you have a duration of 6 months. And while you are coming for this program, you can now do an exchange program. That is where the exchange program that we'll be looking at comes in after this short course program. And with an exchange program, you can get a work permit to stay in Canada for all your life. And during those times, you can still get a permanent resident permit and United citizen. And those courses are as low as they are even below 2,000 Canadian dollars. And trust me, you'll be given admission. Since you can speak English, why don't you come here to learn French as a second language? Easy peasy, with many varieties of varsities to the catch. And you'll be given a short course visiting visa that elapses according to the duration of whatever is left on your international passport. And when you come to Canada, once you're in Canada, you don't need provincial attestation letter. Once you're in Canada, you don't need study permit, like the usual application for study permit. You can get an exchange program to any of the universities of your choice. Now, you don't get to pay international student fee, you will now pay the Canadian fee. Because when you're applying as an international student, there are usually two types of fees. They have international student fee, and they have the Canadian people who are in Canada, the fee they pay. So you is coming as an international student, you pay sometimes twice the Canadian fee, and that will be so much cost for you to keep. That will be so much cost. But imagine you're in Canada and you now decide to get an exchange program, then you now pay the Canadian fee. And getting a study permit is easy peasy, cheap, less stressful, with no stress. So you can actually get to do all of these things. And they are flexible. Most of the short courses programs are part-time or in the evening.
What happened though? I can't hear anything again.
Sorry, can you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Now, I don't know if you guys can still see my screen.
No, the screen is off.
Sorry, we can't see your
Okay.
screen again.
Let me share my screen. Okay, great. I think I'm sharing now. Okay, now, so those courses, just like I said earlier, they are flexible. They are basically part-time. You do them most times in the evening. So you got 20 hours to work in the day. Now, evening time, you go for these courses. And you can also use them to advance your career. And you can also get network opportunities. Cost effect, they're generally less expensive. They are not so expensive. And you have rapid time to complete. So in the case where you are trying to use the study route to migrate to Canada, you can do a short course program for maybe 3 months. That is apparently 12 weeks. And while you are doing the program, get an exchange program or get a work permit. Do you know if you get to come to Canada with a visiting visa and you're able to get a job within 6 months, you'll be given a work permit and you can stay for 2-3 years, depending on whatever permit comes with your job. So it's one of the most accessible, quicker, fastest route to explore. It's less expensive. From the instances we saw, you can even do French as a second language, not so expensive. English as a second language, very cheap to the catch. You can do all of those things. And you have quick completion, say college in private institutions. And there are some universities also who offer them, and language schools, because when you're coming to do it as a second language, there are language schools for that. French as a second language, there are French language schools for that, right? And the minimum requirement for short course program is one, you either come in as a mature student, which is 21 years and above, or you come in with an equivalent of the Canadian high school certificate, which is your O-level certificate in Africa. Those are just the only things you need, just O-level and data page of your passport. Eureka, you are in for the admission. And if you don't have O-level and you're a mature student, you are 21 years and above, you can still apply as a mature student and still be given. So there are no so much admission requirements. There's no need, as long as you can speak English or French is not required. If you can speak English or French, you don't need IELTS, you don't need DEF or TEF to actually come in. And it's simple, just application form, and sometimes you could submit personal statement. Now the tuition fees are low, and there are still scholarship for short course program. And most short courses, after doing them, the readability and availability to getting a job is high. You can easily get a job with short course program. There are many employer sponsorship, because most of the courses that are offered during the short course program, they are professional courses. They are courses that they are centered basically for professional development. So by the time you build skills in any of these ones, you will now stand a better chance to actually even get an exchange program and get a job. So once you have a short course, once you have your letter of acceptance for any of these short course, the next thing to do is just to go apply for your visa, which is not visa, so you apply for your study permit. But in this case now, it's not a study permit, it's called visa, which is a short course visiting visa. I'll show us that now on the list of the application, that there's something called the short course visiting visa. So that's what you apply for. and you get your visa, so do your biometrics and all. So once you get your short course visiting visa, you can come to Canada. While you're doing your program, you can get an exchange program. Get either a study permit by exchanging to another course where you can get study permit, or getting a job where you can get work permit. And once that is gotten, you can to some extent get a permit to stay. And I know a few persons who use this and they came and declared asylum, and some were lucky and fortunate enough to be given some consideration, and they were brought into the Canadian Asylum and Refugee Program, and some of them have been given permanent residence today. So let's just look at a few of these schools. Let's just do a practical section. We are going to do a practical section with just one. PDF materials will be sent because of time. Time has even failed us. Before we talk about study abroad on loan, and I don't think we might even be able to talk about UK and other places. But let me just share my screen. One example of the schools where you can do short course program is the Canadian Career Education College. It's called the cancollege.ca. So PDF materials, just like I stated, will be shared where all of these things are stated. And I'm leaving a chat now on the chat box, the link. So I'm leaving the URL so you can click on that, but it shouldn't bother so much. There will be PDF materials for all of these things where you assess all the schools. Those that are PGWP, get every school on their DLI license, if the school is valid, is not valid, and see short course programs and see colleges or varsities or language schools you can actually apply all of these things. So first we are looking at the Can College. There's the Can College. So it's called the Canadian Career Education College. And do you know, it is never too late to learn, according to what they said. And with them, you can extend study permit. And these are some of the amazing things. Remember, they said no PAL, no provincial attestation required. Do you see that now? So if you are coming to study in Can College, you don't need a PAL. As long as you are doing a short study or a non-vocational program as an international student. Admission is open. You can apply even today. Now, is there any fee to apply for admission assessment offer? No, there's no application fee. It's free. Can I get admission even if I don't have IELTS? Yes, you don't need IELTS as long as you can speak English or French. Whether you have O level or you don't have, as long as you are 21 years and above, you can apply. Minimum secondary school certificate from your country. Yeah, you just need any minimum secondary school certificate. Do I need to send my ECA report, the ECA report to the admission application? Yes, it depends on the offer you are going for. If you have other, it's optional. We can offer alternatives. If you have ECA, it's fine. But if you don't have it, it's fine. You can still come in. Do you have to pay a full tuition fee before admission or visa approval? No. Most of the short courses programs, you only pay 25% of the tuition. Just 25%. Is there any maximum age limit? No. Can I work while I study in Canada? Yes. Can College is one of the perfect places to actually come in. And they also have financial aid and scholarship programs you can explore. You get that now. And you can look at your study programs without PAS. So click here. You see a list of their study programs, including English as a second language. It's all available. All you need to do is just for you to come in, apply to any of them that meets choice, and with that, you can actually get it. You don't necessarily need to wait longer time to get PAL, or you start waiting to get a sizable amount of funds or start applying for this and that. All you need here is just make your application. You don't have to pay application fee, and you get what? Your LOA, which is your letter of acceptance. And with your LOA, you can proceed to make application for your short course study visa, and the visa will be what? Granted. Now, let's see some of the short study programs. What are some of the programs you can come do in Can College as for short-term studies? Okay, if you can see my screen, these are some of them. You can even do attorney or lawyer licensing study program. You don't need to. It's a short study program. You can come in to do chartered professional accountant, chartered chemist, name it, medical laboratory, nurse license pharmacist, blah, 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 and several others. In the list, because of time, I might not give us an in-depth explanation on this. But the PDF I'll be sending, we have a great amount of courses, and the program is open to both foreign and nationals. You don't need provincial attestation letter. IELTS is not needed. If you don't wish to pay your tuition until you come to Canada, it's fine. And if you pay and your visa is denied, you still get a full refund. There is no age limit. You may bring your
Network network is breaking, sir.
once your visa is approved. Can you?
It looks like we are battling with this network again today.
My
Yes,
apologies.
well.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, can.
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Kind of.
Hello, sir.
Okay,
Your
now
voice
I
is
was
very
actually.
low.
My apologies to that. Is it audible now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Now, great.
yes.
Yes.
So, sir, maybe you move close to your mic.
Okay,
Please let's mute our mic.
just that. Okay, great. Now, so when you apply for Crown College is one among several institutes where you can do all of these things. So when you do it, you get a letter of acceptance. It's primary. You get an enrollment contract and an invitation letter. Do you get that now? And sometimes they can also give you visa application guide service via secure portal. Do you see that now? So there are 1,001 institutions like Khan College where you can apply. Where you can apply, and you can come study, get a short course program. And when you come here now, you can now get what is known as an exchange program. So let us look at a list of all of their courses that don't require PAL. Look at courses that you don't need PAL. There are many. There are so many. Career transition program, attorney or lawyer, chartered chemist. Fine, that might be too ambiguous. Cloud and data science. You can do data science with them. You don't need PAL. No PAL required. It's stated here. Now, these ones are non-regulatory. The reason why they are non-regulatory because you don't need license. But for these regulatory ones, after you undertake them, you need to get your license, right? But for non-regulatory, you don't need license. So watch building environmental system, cloud and data science, building code skills development program, supply chain management standards, nation in IT infrastructure, bridging programs, and all. All of those ones, you don't get to require PAL. And there are language and credential assessment programs. Remember I said studying English as a second language. You can do English for academic preparation. Domestic and international admission is open. The tuition for this go between 800 Canadian dollars to even 1,200 Canadian dollars, as the case may be. And still don't forget, in most cases, you can decide to pay your tuition when you come to Canada. If you decide not to pay your tuition while you are still in Nigeria, it's fine. Or while you are still in Ghana or any part of the African nation, any part of the world where you are, it's still cool. So when you come to Canada, then you can pay your tuition. So you can do French as a second language, mature student status assessment test, mention it. You can actually get to do all of that. So all of this now doesn't require PAL. You don't need provincial attestation later. Remember, there's no application fee. You don't have to pay any fee to apply. The application is open. Yours is just go and apply. Make application. Online admission application. Look at it here. Click. It will take you to where you will apply. And you fill in your information. Submit every information that you have. Then from there, you can actually get started. So when you want to apply, let me share my screen. When I click that, look at apply pharmacy. Wherever you feel any course that meets your choice here, click on them and start applying. English for academic preparation, you can click on this and apply. Once you are done with that now, admission will be easy. issue. So the benefit that comes with this in this section is we are going to give a PDF of at least most of the varsities and colleges, as well as vocational houses and language schools where you can actually get a short course program and try the application almost immediately. That PDF will be shared. And going by my time now, I think we have less than 20 minutes to bring this section to a close. So okay, before we leave, let me state something. You can see this is their DLI license. It's stated here. So it shows that they are regulated. And if you're not satisfied with this, just go over to the government website and check for the DLI, just like we did earlier for some of the varsities. You'll get to see them on the government website. And that will now actually save you from applying to varsities or institutions that are not recognized, so that you don't be a victim. So now I believe we have less than 20 minutes to bring this section to a close. So I don't know, at this point now, I will be leaving the floor so open for those who actually have questions. Now, the modalities for questions, put up your hand. When you put up your hand, then you'll be selected, then you can ask a question, then I'll provide answers. Thank you. So if you have question, you can will be given for you to ask. So I don't know. I think the first person here is Linda A. I don't know if she's still here. Linda A, can you ask your question?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I'm here. Good
Okay,
evening.
great. Now, evening to you, ma'am.
Can you hear me? Good evening.
Yeah, I can hear you, ma'am. Good evening to you, ma'am.
Okay. I just have two questions. The first one is the regular study route. Do we need IELTS for it?
Okay, now can you ask the second question?
Then the second one is the short programs.
Okay,
For
ma'am.
instance, if you want to do the short programs and you get there after the short programs, assuming you delay in your exchange of program or you delay in your work permit, what happens to you? Are you coming back to your home country, or is there any way to navigate it?
Okay, now great. Now, thanks so much, and Mrs.
I don't know
Linda,
if
for
you are
that
clear with
question.
my question.
Yeah, I do. The first question is on just like we look at the short course, there's still the regular study route that requires you to get study permit, provincial attestation letter for undergraduate programs, and for graduate programs of masters and postgraduate doctorate, you don't need that. So now some schools still require you to have IELTS, just like I stated earlier. There are some courses when you're coming for, you need IELTS, but most schools in Canada will not require you to get IELTS. Most schools won't, but still a few exceptions will still require you to do IELTS. As long as you get to study in an English speaking country or a French speaking country, you don't need that for most of the universities in Canada. But if at all it's a particular university requires that, then you should go for your head, because that will be stated in the admission requirement. Right now, so that varies. So it varies with institutions, or it varies with varsities or post-secondary institutes in Canada. Now, the second question you asked was, if I come for a short course program, for instance, the program was to last for 20 weeks, which is 5 months, and I was not able to get an exchange program, what do I do? Now, let me now state it so clearly. Remember, first, when you come in for a short course program, you are going to be given a short course visiting visa that will be synonymous to whatever time validity is left on your passport. For instance, if I'm holding a 10 years passport and I'm given a short course program, simply means I'll be given a 10 years visiting visa. And the duration of stay in Canada with a visiting visa is 6 months. So if my program is 5 months and I'm not able to get an exchange program, I think subsequent sections after this, now we are going to look at exchange programs and how to get them. So that now that you have been schooled around short course, you also know how to get exchange programs either for yourself or for your clients. Now, since I'm given 10 years visiting visa and my program is just 5 months and I'm not able to get an exchange program, it's advised if you're not able to get an exchange program, do not exceed 6 months stay in Canada. Go back to your home country. If you go back to your home country, you can still come back. As long as you have 10 years visa, as long as your visa is still valid, you can come to Canada every five months. Then don't exceed 6 months, because if you exceed 6 months, your visa might be terminated, right? You might be given a ban. So since you're not able to get an exchange program, once you have visiting visa, in 5 month time, when you're done your program, come back to Nigeria or come back to wherever country you're coming from. Now you can still go back to Canada again. This time you have your visa. The only thing you need to get is to buy a ticket. Get your ticket, come back to Canada and see if you can get a job. The law states that if you can get a job within the time or within 6 months of your stay in Canada, you'll be given a permit and you can stay. So you don't have so much to fear or fright around it. So that is just, I think that's the answer to your question. But let me now leave a clause now. For you to get the best is to use a short course program to get an exchange program. And getting an exchange program is less tedious than you applying for a work permit in Nigeria or somewhere in Ghana or some part of Gabon. It will be more difficult if you're applying from there. And it's more easier when you're in Canada because you can take your interviews by yourself. You can walk into any organizations and apply directly. And the ease with which you can get it is higher compared to you trying using an agent. Unless you got someone who is either a recruiter for some of these companies or agencies who can actually help out. And one among those people is us. We also recruit for some agencies in Canada. But let's leave that vis-a-vis, because prior to this time, when we look at the work route or the job route in Canada, that was discussed so extensively. So I don't know if that answers your question. I'll be moving to the next person. I don't know if this answered your question, Mrs. Linda.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's clear enough. Thank you.
Yeah, you most welcome. Yeah. Let's move on to Mary Precious. So Mary, if you're there, can you actually ask your question? We actually have 8 more minutes to go, so let's go fast so that we can maximize the time.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Yeah, greetings to you, ma'am.
Yes, sir, good evening. Okay, thank you very much for this section. Firstly, I wanted to ask, it might not be something that has to do with what you have heard with us today, but the last time we held this meeting, you said I wanted to understand, I wanted you to get to know some certificates that you said that we could use in place of the IELTS concerning the caregiver program that is coming up. And secondly, can you hear me, sir?
Sure, I can hear you.
Okay, sir. The second question is what is the duration of the payment for the shortcut program when the admission is being given? You actually said maybe when we get there, you can now pay for it. Are we going to start the academic section first before we can make payment, or the criteria is you make payment before you can resume your academic section? Okay, the next question I have is okay, you said something about shortcut programs that offer scholarship. So I would want to have some schools that offers such. And the last question is, does the shortcut program allows you to travel with your spouse? Can you hear me?
Mary, can you hear me now? Sure, Mary, I can hear you. I
Okay,
can
yes,
hear
I
you.
can hear you. Okay, I said the last
Okay,
question
great.
is
Now, okay.
I don't know if you heard the last question. I said the last question, does the short course program allow you travel with your spouse?
Okay, great. Great now. Great. So let me take the first question. Now, the first question, the first question will not be answered. Just reach out to your admin. They are going to, you'll get answers from them. I'll send the answers to them on to some of the courses. The reason is because the caregiver route, as discussed, was in previous sections before this one, so that we don't actually get to have several information at the time. So just reach out to your group admin, then you get all of the necessary information. Then you pay it fine. As long as you have your letter of acceptance, you can still apply. But you stand a better chance if you pay 25% of your tuition, because the processing or immigrating officer will be like, okay, this person is actually fully ready to come for this course, right? But in most cases, if you don't want to pay, that still does not limit your chances. But you have a more stronger chance if you pay 25% of your tuition, right? Now, lastly, can you come in with your spouse? Yes, it varies with some of the institutions. There are some institutions that give you a supporting document that will allow you to come with your spouse during the time you are doing your short course program. So a list of that will be sent in the PDF. Maybe I'll just make an asterisk to a few of those ones that can allow you to come with your spouse. Not all short course programs allow you to come with your spouse. Just like when we saw in the last time we get to see for Khan College, when we're looking at Khan College said yes, they can allow you to come with your spouse. So there are some that allow you and there are some that don't allow you. So now the case now is if you actually want to come in with your spouse, look for courses or college and post-secondary universities or institute that allow you to come with your spouse. Let me just get to iterate that again. So that is just what you need to know in the meantime. But for your first question, reach out to your group admin. You'll get answers to that. Thanks so much. So I don't know if that answers your question, ma'am.
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. Now, the third person is Mr. Fadare Olumoyiwa Akonde. I think we'll just be taking few questions. I don't know how. Okay, yeah, greetings to you, Mr. Fadare.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir. Thank you for this. My question is that we're explaining about this. You talked about short program that extend beyond 6 months, and you said such program you need to get a visiting visa. And I want to ask, for those ones that are below 6 months, get a short course visiting visa. How does the person in such cases without a visa?
This one, your mic is echoing. Your mic is echoing.
Father, can you chat it on the chat, on the meeting chat? I'll pick it up from there.
Okay, I'll chat it immediately.
Okay, thanks.
I think it's better now. Oh, no, I'm doing it.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
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 Okay. These are network. I don't know. Seriously, it's not nice.
I would like to know if there's audio, there's an audio recording of since the network is not really.
Sorry, Miriam, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Sir,
The network is really terrible.
Sorry about that. So Miriam, if you can hear me, you can ask your question. Yeah, Father, I've seen your question, but let's just hear Miriam out so that we get to answer everything at the same time. Okay, maybe Miriam is not ready. So let's further a question. Let me get to answer his question. He said, for short course programs that are below 6 months and doesn't require short course visiting visa, how would the person get to travel? Okay, Father Ray, I think you got the information wrongly. I did say that for short course program that are below 6 months, you need to apply for a short course visiting visa. But for programs that are beyond 6 months, you need to apply for a study permit. And in most cases, you might be getting provincial attestation later. So if the short course you are running is 6 months and more than 6 months, let's say 48 weeks, 50 weeks, you need to get study permit for them. And because you'll be getting study permit and you also be getting provincial attestation later. So that might hamper your chances. Now, let me just get to say something. Short courses are just a route for you to come to Canada, right? So because they are routes, look for anything that is most affordable. Even for some persons who want to come for the live-in caregiver, do you know the best live-in caregiver certificate you can get is home support worker? Do you know that? And you can actually do a short course in home support as a home support worker for less than 4,000 Canadian dollars. And when you're done with these courses, you can still apply, get a live-in caregiver job, and get your permanent residence to become a citizen. So all of these things are as easy peasy. There are things you can easily come in for. So if you want to use the short course route to get an exchange program, take courses that are below 6 months. There are 1,001 courses. The lists are endless. The colleges are endless. So take a short course program that is below 6 weeks, apply for a short course visa, come to Canada, get an exchange program, get a permit. Easy peasy. So, Father Ray, I don't know if that answers your question while we move into number 5. So, I'm going to only take 3 questions more before I leave the section. So, just 3 questions more. After